endless skies. Oh, I'm living that nomad life, city to city, feeling alive. From mountain tops to ocean drives, unchained, I thrive,
Okay. So thank you so much for joining us here on Nomads 50 Plus. My name is Chris Kalaboukis, and it's my current mission to interview 1,000 digital nomads. That's right, folks, 1,000 digital nomads on what it's like to be in the life of a digital nomad for all of you out there who are aspiring to become digital nomads. And we have very special guests with us today. First time we've had a couple on. This is great. Why don't you tell us a little about yourself and about your travels?
Sure. Thanks for having us on, Chris. I'm Ari. This is my wife, Jessie, and we are digital nomads. We went on the road a number of years ago when my career job ended and I started doing freelance work, and then Jessie worked to find
Is that a nice way of saying you got fired? No, I'm kidding.
No. It was I worked.
You probably should explain that one a little.
Yeah, I worked in state government, and the person I was working for was term limited out.
Right.
So I had to look for something else, and I didn't want to do that anymore. So I went freelance, and then I was able to work remotely. And you decided you wanted to do that too, so you started looking.
Yeah,
nice.
We'd traveled for years. We'd owned tents and pop-ups and motorhomes, and we were living the travel life anyway, or not really living it, but enjoying it. And it just kind of came to a crossroads for us of, well, what were we going to do next? And it's like, are we going to dive? We're going to have him, Ari, dive right back into the corporate life, or what are we going to do? And it was the perfect opportunity for us to kind of take a step back in our life. Our kids were off at college, and so it was like the perfect time to really think about what we were going to do. And we'd been talking to other nomads, and we'd been saying, well, okay, if you can do this, why can't we do this? And it took me a good year to find a job that I could work remotely. Mm-hmm. I'd been working in higher education, and that in my position there was not something I could do remotely. And so it was, well, I'm going to find something that I can. And I did. It just took me a year to do it. And in the meantime, Ari had been doing freelance work and getting his consulting business off the ground. And so it eventually kind of all seamlessly blended together.
Nice.
It wasn't easy. There's a lot of things that went into all of that decision, and things that we still deal with today, and there's always challenges, but it was just a matter of, okay, we have this opportunity. If we don't take it right now, we're not going to do it. So let's just do it.
Exactly.
Well, and I think, and we can get into this a little bit too, but you talked about it took about a year to find the job, and then we were doing more traveling as we could, but I think one day we were both sitting on the couch working at one point for some reason, and it was wintertime in Michigan. And I was kind of like, why are we working remotely in our living room? Like, this seems kind of silly. And I had noticed.
It's like you realize the absurdity of the situation,
yes.
Right?
So
were you also texting each other? Like, oh, I was like.
Yeah. We have been known to do that. Yeah,
we've been known to do that in the Airstream. We have a 30-foot Airstream right now, and we've been known to.
By the time you get to the other end, it's like you don't want to shout.
Right.
So we had noticed as we had our RV and we started traveling more. Every time we went out, we stayed out longer. And I'm like, maybe this is what we want to do. And so now we are out generally about 9 months out of the year. We are on the road away from Michigan. And then we head back for the holidays, kind of spend time with family, that sort of thing.
Right. So you still have a place to go. You haven't sold your home yet.
No, we have a house that our daughter is taking care of for us, so she has a place to live, and I have a big long driveway to park the Airstream in when we are visiting family. That's kind of how I look at it. So
I love it.
We're kind of, we kind of say we're most timers, I guess. We're still nomads in terms of, we're working remotely. We're on the road about 9 months of the year. So when we are on the road, we are fully on the road.
Right.
But we're not 100% committed in terms of we haven't sold everything and only moved into the 30-foot Airstream.
Oh yeah.
And there's a point where we've talked about, I think that was the goal originally, and life for many reasons gets in the way of all of that. And we actually kind of don't mind our current situation because we have somebody that's available to watch our house.
Yeah.
We're close by our family when we're home, because if we did go full time and we still want to go back for the holidays, then there's the challenges of, well, where do we park the trailer? It's winter. We can't really live in the trailer in Michigan in December.
You
and then
can't?
deal with
I thought that thing was
storage
like
costs.
all weather.
Yeah,
It's a
as
big,
much as they'd like you to, the marketing would lead you to believe that it's not really true.
yeah, the walls are cold in a big metal tube. Just to be clear.
No kidding.
Yes.
But yeah, so I think that's one of our little bit differences is that we're not 100% remote, but we think we have the best of both worlds because it gives us a place to go home to. We're not trying to rent an Airbnb or a hotel, or we're not trying to, hang out and crash in with family members and then
Yeah.
have people tripping over each other in the same household. So for us, this arrangement really works for right
Yeah.
now.
No, I've talked to people who are they go for a few months a year, 9 months a year, or they've sold up and they're gone. So they all, I mean, they all consider themselves digital nomads. It's whatever works for you, right?
I think
And
I think that's key. What works for you, and it can change. I know people that have started out full time and have now backed off a little bit, and they have found a home base, but they still go out a lot, like we do. Or some have given it up entirely. I mean, it depends. Everybody's season of life changes, and I think one of the key things in all of this is make a decision. Don't let something hold you back because you're thinking, oh, well, this is the last decision, and it's always going to be this way.
Yep.
You're making a decision to go nomad. You could make a decision to go back if you want. That's
Exactly.
the beauty of it.
everyone thinks these decisions are irreversible. It's like, I'm going to sell everything. I'm going to go do this. I'm going to go to this. It's like, you can always buy again. You can always land somewhere else. There's nothing stopping you from changing your mind other than you feel like you went back on what you wanted to do. But yeah, anyone can do whatever they want, as far as I'm concerned.
Exactly. Oh, well, and I think it's not so much as setting parameters. It's, hey, we're selling everything and we're hitting the road. Okay, well, that's great, but as long as you don't say we're doing this forever and you just say this is a new thing we're trying. I mean, think about how many people we know that have cottages up north, or a condo in Florida or Myrtle Beach or whatever. I mean, people already have all of these things. They just don't think about them in the same way we do. I mean, think about how many people you probably know who snowbird in Arizona, Texas, or Florida in the winter. I mean, They don't necessarily consider themselves nomads, but that's exactly what they're doing.
Yeah,
They're
yeah.
leaving
Except
one
that
house and going to
they're
another.
retired and they're not working when they're traveling.
Yeah.
Right.
So
And-
it's
I was gonna say, and things change. I mean, you talk about seasons of life changing. When we first hit the road, even as this 9-month sort of path that we're on right now, we had a much smaller RV. We had a Class B motorhome, so it was a converted van basically. We loved that,
Wow, that is
travel
small.
style.
That is
Yes, but
small.
we loved the travel style. It was much more nimble. It was quick up and down. We could you pull into a campsite, you put it in park, and we're set up. Right, that's all.
Yeah,
there
but
was
you were
to it.
like on top of each other, though, weren't you?
Yes,
Yeah.
and
For some couples, that's okay.
well, and we get along great. But even then, when we started to do so, and we get into this a little bit too, is part of what I do is we do park hosting. So we volunteer at state parks, and that's how we pay for. I pay the rent in the winter, right? So I do volunteering. Well, when we were settling in someplace for 2-3 months at a time, that van got a little bit tight. We have some friends who did this lifestyle in a van for a while, and one of their favorite phrases was the wife used to say, "I need some space without you in it." And that was her polite way of saying for, somebody
please
needed
don't.
to take a walk. Right. And so we never wanted to change our travel style, but then we realized our travel style changed. And so why not change the rig to match that? And that's how we ended up now in a 30-foot Airstream.
Nice. So have you guys always wanted to travel? I mean, from when you were young?
For me, yes. I mean, I used to do a lot more international travel, like when I was younger, and a little bit more free without all the commitments of life. And so I used to do a lot more international travel. And then after we got married, then it was okay. Well, let's just start visit. We wanted to visit all 50 states. We had all these things that we wanted to do. We wanted to visit friends and family in different places, and we just loved camping. Like, we just loved camping and hiking. And so we started literally with a tent, and then we moved to a little small pop-up, and then we moved to the van, the motorhome. And then we eventually got the Airstream. And so for us, yes, travel has always been part of our lifestyle, whether that was, even a weekend getaway to Chicago, from coming from Michigan, like a weekend getaway to Chicago, renting a hotel. Maybe it was a trip to Florida, and maybe it was a flight to the Virgin Islands. Like, we've always traveled, but then we decided there's so much to see in America. Like, we really should be traveling within our own country first. And I wouldn't say it's actually more economical than international travel, because if you do it right, depending on how you're doing it.
Sure.
But for us living and being nomads, it was kind of like, it was an easy decision for us to say, you know what, let's try this out. Let's try to complete our 50 state quest by going and, you know, trying to live in all these different places and visit them for short periods of time or long periods of time, depending on, you know, when and where we ended up there.
Yeah. It sounds like your vehicles are getting larger and larger. Is like a bus conversion in the future?
No, we've talked about this recently. I mean, part of the reason we went with the rig we have is it has a built-in office in the back of it. So Jessie being, you know, full-time remote work, she has the kind of more standard full-time job, 9 to 5, 8 to 6, whatever, depends on the day, right?
Yeah, it depends on the time zone, right?
7 to midnight, yeah. And mine's more flexible. So when we found this rig that had a built-in office, she can kind of tuck herself away back there during the day and get work done. That was perfect for us. We've talked about at some point, if we reach a point where we're retired, we're not working as often, would we go back to smaller? Actually, that might be the answer for us because we like the smaller rig. But, and I've always said, even when we had the smaller rig, we live out of RV. We live out of our RV. We don't live in the RV, right? And so we use it as a method of way of transportation to get somewhere and go experience that location.
Right. And then how much, like, did you know all about this before you got into it? Like, did you do a lot of research before you decided what to buy and what to do? Or did you already?
Yes and no.
Yeah. I mean, the
just kind of
digital
winged
lifestyle,
it.
we started following a lot of people on YouTube that were doing kind of the nomad lifestyle and living full time in RVs and that kind of thing. We originally, I think we were looking at a Class C, so a little bit bigger motorhome style. And then I started following a podcast of this couple that I mentioned earlier who lived in a van. I'm like, maybe we could do that. And you thought I was crazy.
Oh, there was a lot of crazy conversation. Yes. I was like, no,
we're not doing that. Are you kidding?
No, we're not doing it. No, not at all.
And then we went to a dealership to look at a Class C, a larger RV, a motorhome. And they happened to have one there that was used. It was
not a C, a B.
Oh, I'm sorry. It was a used B. And I'm like, hey, let's look at this van. And I'd gotten you to listen to the podcast a few times. And you were kind of like, all right, maybe we can do this. And we test drove it and kind of fell in love with it. And so that's what launched us.
It may or may not have come home with us that day.
Yeah. We went for a test drive of one type and bought another.
Something else.
There's a huge difference, though, right? I mean, I think people don't understand the differences between the two because which one is the big one? Is the Class C?
The Class A is the really big one.
A is like your big motorhome, like your big coach, what you think of as like a Indian Trails or a tour bus style.
All right, those massive
the massive
huge
ones.
thing.
Those are the big Class A's. Class C's are more of a, like, it kind of looks like you're driving a big truck camper, but it's all one unit.
Right.
It's like the cab over, like with a truck style body, big boxy thing. And then the Class B is your more van, like Mercedes, Chevy, Ford Transit style.
Right. And those are the smallest ones, right?
And those are the smallest ones.
Yes.
But they're not the cheapest.
No, the smaller you get, the more expensive they get. It's
crazy. Which we just got a really good. I mean, here's a little bit more of that backstory. So we'd been in the tent. We'd been in this little pop up. We wanted to go out west. We wanted to go to Yellowstone. We wanted to go to Glacier. We wanted to go to all these places. And we had heard that there's a few places out west that they won't let you take a pop up or a tent because of bears or moose or other things. So we said, well, we're going to have to.
That's
rent
important.
Or buy.
Yes.
Yeah, right.
We wanted walls. Let's put it that way.
And
you need something between you and the wildlife.
Solid walls. Yeah.
Small minor details.
Sure.
And so that's where the whole idea of the Class C came in. And our daughter at the time was graduating from high school. And the deal was we were going to, we had offered her, like, what do you want your graduation present to be? And, you can go anywhere. What do you want to do? And she had picked Yellowstone. So she had wanted to go on this big out west trip. So we're like, okay, how do we do that? Well, and we already were discussing buying something. And so we were going to look at Class C's. We'd gone to a couple RV shows, we'd researched them, and then we said, let's go test drive them. So we hauled her along with us to the dealership, and we test drove a couple different Class C's. And then we saw the B on the lot, and we said, okay, let's test drive that. And we got this huge eye roll because the Class B is really not designed for 3 people. Like the Class C was
three
doable,
sizable people, right? Adults.
But the Class B was like definitely not for 3 adults. But we test drove that, And I think within minutes of like driving through the neighborhood, we were like, we're sold. Like,
Yeah.
this drives so much better.
We were sold.
It's more like
Our
a
daughter
regular
was not
van.
sold.
The daughter sitting in the back was like, this was the van. And she's like, no, absolutely not. And we're like, well, sorry, kiddo, but you don't get a say in this, because like, we know that the Yellowstone thing is a one-time thing versus like us using this long-term for other adventures.
Yeah, exactly.
We survived 3 adults in that van for 2 weeks on an out west trip.
Nice.
And then we all said we would never do that again.
One too many adults.
Good memories.
It was good memories. We had a blast. It was absolutely perfect for what we wanted to do. And that motorhome got us through the next 7 years.
Yeah.
Nice.
So
Yeah.
it was the perfect for what we wanted.
We do have a pattern though. We were at the Tampa, Florida RV show, which is like one of the 2 biggest RV shows in the nation. And we have a YouTube channel too. And so I'd gotten us media passes to be able to go in and see the rigs and do some videos about them, that kind of thing. We went in there with no intention of buying anything new. We were just shooting videos for other people. And we ended up buying this Airstream at that RV show. So we have to be careful when we go look at things. It's funny because we were in the Airstream section, and I'm just shooting, B-roll video, just taking pictures. And she'd walked into this model of this Airstream, and I have it on video. She calls my name, and I just kind of turn with the camera, and she leans out and she goes, "I think I found our next rig." And so I have that video clip, and it's her looking at the office model.
Nice.
And I was totally kidding, because I was like, we can't afford this. Like, we've done zero research on an Airstream. We don't know anything about it. This is, and
but it's beautiful. Look at that thing.
Oh, it's amazing. I absolutely love it. But the funny thing is actually at that same show, we almost bought a Winnebago.
Really?
Another van. We were going to just upgrade our old van to a more modern van with newer technology, fewer miles. And I mean, we had the guy drawing up paperwork. And then we thought back, we're like, but remember that really pretty Airstream we walked into 2 days ago that has all this space, and it doesn't have
That's
to.
what you really wanted. That's what you really wanted. You don't have to
convert the bed to the table to the couch every night. It has an off. And so we're like, okay, let's go talk to the salespeople over at Airstream. And we kind of walked away with an Airstream. So when you said, like, how much did we research? Did we know any of this? Like, the answer was yes, we knew about the lifestyle, but we kind of made a couple impulse decisions when it came to our rigs.
But sometimes when you could just feel it, like it's instinctive that this is what you want.
There is because
you have these situations where you're like, okay, do I buy this or this or this? And one feels right, but the other one's like cheaper, or it's like your mind heart sort of thing. It's like your brain says one thing, but your heart says something else, right?
And there is a saying among RVers that you don't find your RV finds you, and that's happened to us twice now, right? And so because there's no perfect rig, I can guarantee you that. But there are, everything's got its positives and negatives. But there are things that 90% of the time will this work for you. That's kind of our 90-10 rule. And if it does, then that's the right one for right now. Travel styles may change, how you want to, park or not park may change, where you want to go may change, and you change rigs.
And rigs and tow vehicles too. I mean, for years, Ari had said, I don't want to tow anything. Like, we were dead set that motorhome was going to be our way of life. Like, we love just having the cab and the back, everything connected. We loved the motorhome way of life.
It's easier to drive, isn't it? I mean, you don't have to worry about
exactly.
doing all
so that was our mindset. And so that's why we, when we were looking at other rigs, we were looking at other motorhomes, whether they were just newer or slightly bigger or different configurations. We looked at a ton over a couple years span. And then we were park hosting one winter in Texas and with the van. And we also realized that we didn't want to unhook it and pack everything up in travel mode every time we needed to run to the store, or if we wanted to go do something, because we were settled in for 3 months here. We're like, this is going to get really annoying.
Right. Because you've got your house, you have to take your home everywhere you go.
Everywhere. Yeah. And while normally that had been great, we loved, because we were always on the go. But that very first park hosting experience where we were settled in for 3 months, we went, oh, this isn't going to work. And we got in contact with somebody and ended up shipping my Jeep from Michigan to Texas. So for the 3 months we were in Texas, we had a rental, or we had a car. Right. Because we considered
something to run about with. It's almost like you need a motorcycle or for something like a 4x4 or
and we
something.
know people that have those, but like this was like we be able to, we needed to actually like leave the campground and go somewhere and be able to haul groceries and explore. And so I think that was our first real time when we were like, it would be nice having a second vehicle. So, okay, do we just set up the, do we get a new van? Do we get a new Class C? Do we get a motorhome? Do we flat tow the Jeep? That was our very first consideration, was we'll just flat tow the Jeep behind us.
Yeah.
Well, one thing led to another. We stumbled on the Airstream and said, oh, well, I guess we're going to tow something now, but we don't own a vehicle to tow with.
It's like
now we
fate,
have to go
fate
find a
bestowed this
vehicle
upon
to
you.
tow
It knew which direction you were going in and said, here you go.
It just, yep.
What's funny about that though too is so most people will tow an RV with, if you have a trailer, they will tow it with a big truck. We tow ours with a van. We have a 1-ton commercial van. And the reason we did that was we were used to the van life, and we have now set that up for weekends. It has a bed platform. We have a powered cooler. We have all kinds of things in there that when we just zip away for the weekend, we leave the Airstream behind and we go back to van life
Oh,
for
nice.
the weekends. So
That's
it
a
is
great
kind of
idea.
the best of both worlds by doing it that way.
And I
So,
think
but
that
you can't
that
use
was
this,
our way to do it.
but you can't use a Class B to tow something like that, right? You'd have to have something else.
Not something this large.
Right.
We towed smaller trailers. The one we had too many miles on it. It was already, the way it was built, it was so heavy. I was gonna be worried about any kind of towing capacity with it. So.
Right.
Some of the newer ones, I think they realize that people do. I mean, whether it's a trailer that you're living in or it's like a utility trailer, cargo trailer, because people do haul motorcycles, they haul kayaks and bikes, they haul, we know people that do like flea market type stuff. So, or astronomy. So they're hauling telescopes, they're hauling arts and crafts. And so people are hauling trailers behind them. Ours just wasn't going to be designed for that. Right. And so, it's a life, it's just a chapter. Like we always just assume that this is like a chapter in our life. And at some point we will change and we'll flip the page and we'll be on to a new chapter. And, whatever that looks like, for whether that's work reasons, health reasons, personal reasons, family reasons, there's always something. And I think that that's why we got into this lifestyle in the first place was, you asked, we like to travel. We really did. And we'd started wanting to see more things. Our sort of personal story is that we have had a number of family members who unfortunately passed away all too young, never made it to retirement, never made it to being able to do the things that they expected, after age 50. And so we said, well, we are not waiting for that. Like we're closing in on that age, but we're not waiting for that. And so when we made that decision in 2016, we bought the van in 2015. You ended in 2018. I changed jobs in 2019 and we hit the road in 2020. So it took us about 3 to 4 years to really like figure out what we were going to do. And so as we closed in on that, we're like, we're not waiting for retirement. Because there's no guarantee about any of it. And even if you are healthy, you don't know what tomorrow's going to bring.
Right. Well, and it even has to do with, because I know your thing is, talking to Nomads 50 plus. So I'm over 50. Jesse's not yet. But it was one of those things where, I think people will sometimes say, well, okay, maybe I don't wait to retirement, but do I wait to kind of like the second career or doing more of the freelance type thing on the side? So I have some freedom to do that and flexibility. We have that in my case. In your case, you're still working full time with meetings all day long, dealing with clients, that kind of stuff.
Well, if it wasn't for COVID, if you think about it, I mean, a lot of these jobs wouldn't exist. You wouldn't have the remote work.
It showed people that it can be done. Now, your company's been remote from day one.
Yeah, we were remote pre-COVID, so that didn't change anything for us. Yeah,
that's good.
We were, and I mean that was the selling point of why I took the job in the first place, was because it was 100% remote. There was no expectation of ever going to an office. We get together when we need to and travel for conferences, meetings, what have you, but no expectation of going to an office. COVID comes around, changes the entire world. Everybody goes remote. We had a number of clients that I do public relations. I work for a PR agency. We had a number of clients who obviously they were going remote, because we all did, but realized they could work remote. They gave up the leases on their offices and transitioned fully remote. But we had others, and I know of other colleagues in other places who were called back to the office eventually. Yeah. And so despite thinking that they were going remote too, maybe they did for the first 2 years, but have now been called back. And maybe it's a hybrid, maybe it's a full time, but I don't have that. I will always be remote in my
Yeah.
position.
Yeah.
And so that has worked out really well for us. But it does mean that like I am stuck to that Monday through Friday schedule. Like I am heads down on the computer all day long, being antisocial. So like when we're here park hosting, in the various places we do, Ari's out interacting, working on maintenance, working on the nature center, volunteering, doing all this cool stuff. And I'm like, oh, that looks so lovely out the window. but
I feel your pain because I'm in the
like,
same situation. I work 5 to 2 for a big company, and it's fully remote, which is great, but I can work from anywhere. So it's great to be able to work. But then, if you do want to, enjoy yourself at the same time, then you have to do it outside of those windows, unfortunately,
Yes.
right?
Now the advantage is because we are in the trailer and we travel all these beautiful places. I mean, we've had you where, you've been working all day and then you'll get done and we buzz down the road and we're at the Grand Canyon, right?
Oh,
or
yeah.
you step
I
out the
mean,
door
you
and you're
can't
on
beat that.
Pacific Coast Highway in California, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there's
Yeah,
advantages.
you can't beat that.
Yeah.
No, and that's the beauty of it is I will take my 9 to 5 or whatever hours happens to be on any given day, but I will take that full-time remote job to be in those beautiful places.
Oh, yeah.
And to know that at the end of the day I'm somewhere warm, usually, not Michigan in the winter, and enjoying life and living vicariously through the one who is semi-retired here and doing his own thing and consulting and all the volunteer stuff. And I'm like, all right, I got a few more years. I just got a few more years, gaining in on 50 eventually, not too far off here from me. I and anybody that's watching this podcast, I know I don't look it, but trust me, the wrinkles are here. It is. I thank my genetics for that, but I know I'm getting closer to that retirement age, but I'm not there yet. So in the meantime, we're doing what we can.
Would you also do freelance too? Something like what your husband's doing, or?
Probably. I mean, we both are in the same career. I mean, we both have
Right.
done public relations, project management in our whole careers. So,
I mean, I
Yeah.
think the reality is, and you have to think about this when you're going to be a digital nomad, is how do you pay for this lifestyle, right? There's still
Exactly,
bills
which
to
is
pay.
where I was going next, actually.
Yeah, there's still, we don't, I mean, our house is almost paid off, the one in Michigan, so I will lose that mortgage soon, but we essentially have a mortgage on this Airstream, right? I mean, you have to pay for that. There's expenses as you're traveling. So you have to kind of do something, or you have to have some sort of income. And that's why a lot of times we'll meet a lot of people that are on the road that are nomads and everything. They may have a military background. And that helps because you might have a pension, you might have good health care, that kind of thing. You're not worrying about it.
Yeah.
I have a background in state government. So at some point here in the near future, I will have a pension that will help. But we'll, for some time, you still have to pay for fuel and campsites and insurance.
maintenance.
And
Yeah.
maintenance.
But it is a lot cheaper than actually being in a home, though, in a house, right?
Yeah,
Everything that you need.
It depends. Well, and it depends because like our travel style, we do park hosting. So winter, we don't have any rent to pay at the campsites. I do it through volunteer work. I pay
Right.
it through my hours. The rest of the time when we travel, we like to do state parks. Tends to be cheaper. A lot of people who want to go to these big fancy RV resorts with the pools and all of the amenities, those are getting pricey.
Mhm.
And so that can add up very quickly. Now, we will do those periodically, and it's nice to do them sometimes, but that sort of balances out where we may be at a state park where it's cheaper. We've been boondocking, which is, no hookups, no anything. And we're just on open land that's owned by the federal government out in South Dakota.
Mhm.
And there's no cost for that. So budget wise, it balances out. So it depends on how you travel and where you stay is going to determine the budget that you need.
And what you're traveling in makes the difference because it's not a hidden cost, but it's a cost that people forget about is laundry. And that when you own a house, you have a laundry machine most likely in your house. I mean, if you're
Yes.
an apartment, sometimes you are paying for laundry in an apartment complex, but most people probably have laundry facilities. More and more trailers are starting to come with the hookups to put like a small washer and dryer. Like you get these big Class A motorhomes, a big fifth wheel, some of the travel trailers that you can put a small washer dryer in or a combo unit. We don't have that in the Airstream. It is not set up for one. There is absolutely no space to put one in one of these. So we always have to take in laundry costs, and laundry is not cheap.
Hmm.
When you think of, and it can vary, but it's usually anywhere from like, about $3 a load. And if you think about how many loads you go through, and so that's a cost that people don't think about. We usually get really lucky in that when you're park hosting somewhere, it's often provided for you as part of, the things that it's part of your site. Like there's usually a
That's good.
maintenance building where you can get laundry, but not always. And then you have to, and that's time. So that's time that you have to go find a laundromat. You have to do your laundry. Take that kind of thing into consideration. There's fuel. There's always something that's breaking, just like in your sticks and bricks house, as we call it. There's always something going wrong. The toilet gets clogged. The refrigerator compressor goes out. The whatever it is, there's something that you have to take into consideration. Another thing is like you might have a tire blowout, on your trailer or on your tow vehicle. So it can be cheaper depending on how you were living, what size house did you have, what kind of mortgage, HOA fees, property taxes, insurance, healthcare. So it can be cheaper, but it also can, I think most oftentimes people find it's a wash because you're just trading one kind of expense for another.
Yeah. So you still need to have the same kind of income you would if you were in a home, if you lived in a house.
Depending on, it depends how you want to travel. You can cut expenses, but I think realistically you have to go in it with the understanding that I'm still going to need some savings. I'm going to need a nest egg in case something goes wrong, something happens. You need to be prepared for that. You can't just kind of live day to day and hope for the best, because things are going to happen.
Well, did you guys pile up some money?
Wealthy, and that's not our. Did what?
Did you pile up some money before you went, or did you just say, okay, we're just going to transition?
We had some savings. I mean,
I think
you said had
some of that,
makes me think it.
Well,
you
we
didn't
had,
have them anymore.
I think part of that is just
Do you see this pretty Airstream that we're living in?
It's beautiful.
I mean, there's costs
it's
involved.
Beautiful.
We bought. In some ways, do we have as much savings as we used to? No, but we also paid off some debt. So, that kind of balances out as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, we knew, we didn't follow the Dave Ramsey method, but we know people who have, and I don't know if you're familiar with his money saving techniques, but we know a lot of people that follow something similar, and it's basically get your debt down and then don't get any more of it. So, once you've paid everything off. And so we had started that a long time ago. So we had a bunch of savings, but yeah, Ari's like, we basically tried to get down what we could. Had a lot of conversations with our financial advisor and our accounting team about how we were going to make this all work. And, I think we've surprised them a few times where we've called and said, so guess what? New plan. But they've worked with us on it and given us advice, and we've made sure that we're sound, and and we are lucky. We know that there's a pension coming, and that doesn't work for everybody. And I think one of the things we're going to see is, up until about now in this generation, lots of people have had pensions. It was the way of life.
Yes.
Moving forward, we're not going to see that. My generation and the people that come, the next generations down, the pension word doesn't even exist anymore in corporate vocabulary.
Yeah.
So
or if it's peanuts, if it is anything.
If it is anything. And maybe healthcare is included, maybe it's not. And so I think we're going to see a lot of change in how that's going to move forward for people. So you're probably going to see a lot more digital nomads, because people are going to try to still do this lifestyle, but they're going to have to work at it for it, and not just be able to retire and just free travel, right? They really are going to be the whole concept of working nomads, because companies just aren't providing those types of benefits anymore.
Oh yeah, absolutely right. You're 100% right. So let's talk a little bit about healthcare. So what do you guys do for healthcare? Do you still have a plan, or how do you work that?
We have insurance through your employer, which is big. And that is a big question for people, is what do you do about healthcare? For a while when I was freelancing, you were not in a position where you could have healthcare from me through the job. So I went out on the exchange and I was paying way too much money for too little insurance, but it's what you had to do at the time. When, Jesse got a promotion at one point, and one of the benefits of that promotion in the company was you could now get healthcare from me as well. So that's been great.
Excellent.
My state pension at some point will kick in, and that will include health insurance. So that will help with costs overall. But that's a big, when we talk to people about going out on the road, that is probably one of the number one questions we get is, well, what do we do about health insurance? It's so expensive to go out on a plan if you don't have an employer willing to do it. I think it's interesting. You mentioned that, the pensions not being there, and people are going to be, there'll be more digital nomads because they'll still keep working. I think what we're going to see also is right now, as you get a little older in the campgrounds that you're in, you're going to see, the people have been retired for years, the people who recently retired. I think you're going to see the 50 plus, the people maybe in their 60s who are still working, but they're doing it as a nomad. They're doing it digitally. They're not able to just rely on a pension anymore. So they may not be retired, but they'll be living this lifestyle, but they'll be doing it as a digital nomad just later on, longer in life.
But
you'll get to a point when you're in your 50s and 60s where you're kind of unemployable, right? You're not really a good corporate employee, quote unquote. I mean, you're a great consultant, but you don't sort of fit the mold of a corporate employee.
Yeah, I think that you're just starting to see a change in just life. I mean, and everywhere and all of that. And, technology is changing the game too. And, but one of the things I wanted to touch on with the healthcare is that is quite frankly, probably one of the biggest questions that anybody asks, when we first started out, we went to a number of, like RV nomad type conferences, events, because we were trying to understand, like, how were you doing this? And one of two things really happened. It was, I think Ari mentioned earlier, we learned a lot about people who had been in the military, and so their healthcare came from the military, and so we're like, okay, well, we were not, so put that box aside. That is not an option for us. Then we had the pension group. We're like, okay, well, we're going to, but we're not there yet. There's you have an employer who offers insurance. Okay, that sounds good. Or there's a couple like Christian co-op groups, and I can't remember what they're called, but you essentially sort of buy into this co-op group, and then when and if there's an emergency, like all the money is pooled together. It's like an exchange of sorts, but
it's like a health share kind of thing.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
So it's in some ways sort of like the marketplace exchange, but it's all like Christian run exchange, and we looked into it briefly, and then when I found my landed my job that offered insurance, we kind of pushed that aside. So I've never done a whole lot of research on it, but we do know people that do use that. They've had mixed results with it. It just depends on, are you going through something simple as, I broke an arm and I just need to go get it splinted, versus like I have cancer and now this is a much bigger deal. So it kind of depends on, what you think your health needs are. Do you have underlying conditions? What's your safety net? But that's still, after the how much money do I need? It's always healthcare.
Right. And then what about getting treatment? Like, have you guys had anything happen to you that you had to go get treated for?
Yeah, I mean,
so you're laughing. So I'm sure that there's something.
Okay, so because I'll take that one. Because we go back to Michigan annually, we're there for a couple of months during the holidays. We tend to try to schedule doctor's appointments, regular checkups, anything that needs to be done. We try to get that done. When you're out on the road, I mean, you think about, not necessarily hospitals are everywhere, but there's so many urgent cares. So if you need some sort of medical, you break your arm, you get a bad cut, you do something, you have a flu.
Yeah, I ended up with strep throat one time and just had, just went to urgent care, and they're everywhere.
You can find urgent care anywhere. The tricky one was I cracked a tooth, and we were in New Mexico, right? And trying to find a dentist on the road can be really tricky because they're either full, they're not taking new patients. If they are willing to see you, it's going to be a while before they can fit you in. So that was an eye opener for me, was how hard that was. I actually ended up going to a public clinic that they said, we do appointments, but also if you just line up at 7 a.m., we take people as they come.
Wow.
So I did, and the dentist was fine and it worked and he took care of my tooth. But yeah, that was one I hadn't really thought about.
The dentist we'd never considered. We'd always just assumed that, our twice a year appointments or whatever would be taken care of.
Yeah, because you don't expect anything to happen. with your
happen.
team.
No.
Yeah.
And so that was just, and we just happened to be in a part of New Mexico. It was pretty rural. I mean, we were traveling through like, where some of the national monuments and parks are. And so we weren't near a big city. And I think that was part of it. I mean, we went very limited choices, and, we've done a lot of pain, but
yeah, it was a rural health clinic that had, it was federally funded rural health clinic, so that people had somewhere to go. And one of the things they offered was dentistry.
And it was great. And we will now recommend that type of service to other people. I mean, even though, and so it was fine, but it was very eye-opening. The healthcare, I think, does, and from the insurance standpoint and healthcare standpoint, I think, counting our blessings, we haven't had anything major medical that we've had to deal with that hasn't been able to be taken care of at home. We did have a few things, but we've purposely made sure we've planned our travel schedule around them to be home to take care of any procedures or tests or anything. And that's where having that house at home is still that's one of the reasons we're still kind of hanging on to that, because it has made things easier when we've needed to be home for, recovery, and making sure that, we were able to do that. So I think that that's helped, but,
you never know. It's always something you think about. Like if something happens,
what do you do? I mean, you could be on vacation, right? I mean, you could literally just be on like a week's vacation to Disney World and have something go wrong, right?
Exactly.
And end up in the hospital.
Crack your tooth on a Mickey bar, you never.
Right,
exactly.
Yeah, I mean, there's always something, but I think when you are full-time traveling, you do have to take that into consideration, because it's not like, oh, well, my vacation's over in 3 days and I'll be flying home and I can deal with that. Like, no, we are still on the road for X number of months. Like, it's not that easy.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about technology, because I mean, everyone needs Wi-Fi, or strong Wi-Fi, or good internet. Do you guys use Starlink, or how do you handle that? Because I know that's a big problem for a lot of nomads, because if they're working, they need to be online.
Yes, and you need to have a solid connection. And it's not even just about, I need to check email, I need to download and upload files. It's video chats now.
Oh yeah,
most
absolutely.
Of your meetings are on
if
video.
you're a consultant, you're having meetings all the time, just like this, the call we're having today.
Absolutely. So we started with, we used hotspots, little MiFi. We had like a Verizon hotspot. We had an AT&T hotspot. We had multiple hotspots that we could connect the computers and the phones to. And we had multiple ones because depending on what part of the country you're in, and sometimes what part of a state you're in, the service will be different. And we needed a backup because you always had to be online.
So you had like a stack of hotspots from different providers.
Right? If one goes out, find another one. So we finally, it's been maybe a couple of years now, 2-3 years, I'd have to look. We did end up buying Starlink.
2023.
I think, yeah. And it was because part of that was, I tend to do a lot of the planning of where are we going to go? Where will we park host? Where will we stay while we're traveling? That kind of thing.
How do we get from point A to point B?
How do we get from A to B? How are we going to work along the way? And one of the first things I always had to do was look at the cell maps. Like, is there cellular coverage at this campground or in between this campground and that campground, that kind of thing. And I found it started limiting where we could go. And we said, okay, and it wasn't as reliable. So we went with Starlink, and now that has really opened the door to us to be anywhere. One of the favorite ones I like to share is last year, 2 years ago, I don't remember now, it kind of all blends after a while. We were at Big Bend National Park in West Texas, which is way remote. Texas. Most Texans have never been to Big Bend National Park because it's so far away. And that says a lot for Texas. But we were in a campground there, a rustic campground. There's no cell service out there at all. And we set up Starlink, and you were doing Zoom calls all day long. Like, it was kind of fascinating.
We're on the border. We're on the border with Mexico, looking across the river at Mexico, and I'm just having a conversation just like I would anywhere.
Nice. I love it.
And that really did change the game for us, because there were so many times when we were traveling where we'd be like, oh, we'd really like to go check out whatever, this national park or that location. But the travel time between would not have allowed me to get there to work, to set up, or it wouldn't have signal, or we didn't know if it was going to have signal. And so we felt like we missed a number of things that we really wanted to see early on in our travels, because we had to be limited to cities where we could get service. And now we can literally go anywhere. Yep. And we have a lot of, well, like you said, in Big Bend, we didn't have hookups to all rustic, but we carry a lot of like Jackery power bank, like the big power banks and everything. So we can hook up into that and run it. And so we can make sure that between our solar power and our battery blocks, we've got all this power that we need to run Starlink. And yeah, we
it's
can
the
now
huge-
pretty much literally go anywhere.
Well, the other thing too, it depends what you like to do. When we're not working, we love to do hiking. We're looking at the national parks. We love dark sky areas and seeing, all the astronomy stuff at night. In order to get that, you're getting away from cities. You're getting into the much more rural locations. And as soon as you do that, you're getting away from the cell signals. So
now the only downside to Starlink is that it doesn't work in the woods. Like you have to
that's
have
right, because you have to have a line of sight to the sky.
So west of the Mississippi is great. Like there's nothing out there. East of the Mississippi, not so great because it's a lot of tree cover. I mean, even at home, like even if when we just like go visit family in Michigan or we want to just go camping for the weekend in Michigan, it is really difficult because we are in Manistee National Forest, and it's called a forest for a reason, and Starlink does not work in those kind of places.
And we've made a few sacrifices, like at different campgrounds. I will go in and I will look to see, there's different sites available, and there's been a few where I'm like, oh, it's this beautiful wooded site. You're tucked in. You're all private. And then there's these other sites that are wide open and you're kind of in the middle of everything.
Next to the bathroom.
We have to take those because we know
you have to
Starlink
take this one instead of that one because you got to work. You still got to work.
Yeah.
And it's okay. But I mean, we do have to take that into consideration. And even sometimes like we'll get here where we're at the state park that we're at hosting now. When you are a host, you have a designated host spot that they give you. It's not like you can look at the map and say, well, where do you want to be? So we kind of just sometimes have to cross fingers, or we'll try to get them to give us a picture view ahead of time to make sure that it will work for us. And, here we've got a few trees. And of course, we've got this wide open sky behind us. Unfortunately, it's facing the wrong direction. And the Starlink has to face north. So, of course, we get it all set up. It does its little spinny around thing. It gets ready to go. And it points at the one tree that we have.
I found the tree.
Found the tree.
It has an uncanny ability to find the tree. Yeah, it always does that. But I have to back up though for a second though, because it's kind of funny the way I said that. I said, we make sacrifices. You talk about first world problems, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Our sacrifice is, do we have a clear sign of, line of sight for the satellites so we can do video calls? Like, it's not much of a sacrifice really when you think.
Yeah, still, where you are, I mean, still amazing, right?
Yeah.
But it's, and I think, Starlink isn't cheap. So, going back to the cost conversation earlier.
Yeah.
People are used to paying their cable bills and their internet bills and everything. So you're probably trading like a Comcast for a Starlink, but you do have to take that into consideration. If you're giving up your cable, are you having to purchase like Peacock subscriptions and Hulu subscriptions and Netflix?
It ends up being more than cable in the end.
More than cable, yes. And so there's all these different considerations. And again, it's your lifestyle. Are you the kind of person that wants to watch your favorite shows every night, or are you just sitting around doing a puzzle?
Yeah.
Do you
But
need
you're in all this natural
calls?
beauty. Why would you be watching TV? I mean, seriously.
Yeah. But that does come up, and people will say that often. They're like, "Why do you even bother? I don't need a TV." And there's a very big difference between if you're camping, are you out for a weekend, are you out for a 2-week trip, versus are you on the road every single day? Yeah, we're going to want to catch up on TV shows. You've been streaming the Olympics, right? I mean, we want to be able to see that stuff. But it is funny, you have to think about all these.
I'm living and working every day on the road, so as a nomad, I don't have a. I might be in a beautiful place, but I am still working.
Yeah, that's your life. It's not like
and not everybody gets that.
You're not on vacation. That's the thing. That's a big thing to get over, right?
Yeah. And a lot of people have to learn
I'm not. Shoot.
Right?
You certainly look like you're on vacation. Look at you.
When you start this lifestyle, a lot of times people will do that. They have to get out of vacation mode. Like you have to, and that's the thing about cost too. You can significantly reduce your costs if you aren't moving constantly. Every time you move your rig, you're paying for more fuel. You're paying for, campsites by the night or maybe by the week. Maybe you can land somewhere for a month. You can get a monthly rate at some campsites. You get a little bit of a discount. So if you're not moving as often, and it also cuts down on the fatigue. There's something called decision fatigue in RVing, which is, where are we going to park for the night? Where are we going to go next? How are we going to get there? What roads are we taking? Is there somewhere to stop along the way so you can pull over and do a meeting? Like this, there are a lot of decisions to make. And if you're not doing that as frequently, that makes it a lot easier.
Right. So if you had one piece of advice to somebody who was thinking about doing this, what would it be?
Go ahead. You can go first.
I don't know if we'll say the same
Probably
thing.
the same thing in different ways, but go ahead.
If we're specifically talking like moving into the trailer, going digital, going as a nomad life, one of the pieces of advice that we've kind of picked up, but that we sort of give to everybody else is you have to love each other. And I say that because not that most spouses don't, but what I mean by that is when you are in your house at home, are you sitting on the couch next to each other watching the same TV show every night? Or are you in completely different levels of your house? One's working on a project on the first floor, one's down in the basement doing something else. Do you have different hobbies? But you're still a couple because you are. But if you are finding yourselves in different rooms doing different activities, this might not be the lifestyle for you because
Right.
you are going to be in a relatively small space. Even in the big fifth wheels that can be 40 feet long, you are still in a relatively small space and you are going to be living with each other like day in and day out. And so you really, and the smaller your space, the more that becomes true.
Right.
And so I don't ever want to deter somebody from it, but you really have to kind of think about how you already live your life. How is that going to work on the road, or is it going to be compounded on the road? And so do you want to go nomad in terms of living in a small 20-foot trailer and traveling nonstop, or do you want to settle in at one of those RV resorts where there's shuffleboard and backgammon and tennis and pickleball and a pool and all these activities, so that in a golf course, so that you can go your separate ways during the day and do your activities? Like, that's some big considerations to consider when you're considering the nomad lifestyle, is putting all of that together, because then it still comes back to like your cost, your rig, your travel style, but how much. And it's not so much how you love each other, but it's like, how do you live with each other on a day-to-day basis
Right.
will dictate what your living style is going to be like on the road.
Yeah, because you can do it both ways. You just have to once you get to where you're going, you gotta go to different places, right? Like you said, you have
Yep.
to. Some places are okay for everyone doing their own thing, and other places are not.
So I don't know if what you were going to say.
But that is a good one. My advice would be to get out of your own way. And the reason I say that is there's a lot of what ifs. People are like, what if I don't like this RV? What if I don't like the lifestyle? What if something happens while we're on the road? If you think about when you're in a house, there's a lot of what ifs. I mean, a lot of people spend a lot of money to buy a house. What if turns out you don't like that house at some point? And maybe you like it at first, but later you're like, I need a bigger house. I need a smaller house, whatever. You change houses, right? Think you can change. And I think we said this earlier. It's not a final decision a lot of times. It's just the decision for now, the decision at this phase or this season of your life, and go for it. And the other thing about that, when I say get out of your way, is don't let yourself wait. Don't talk yourself into waiting for someday I want to do that. When I'm retired, I'm going to do that. Both of my parents died very young. I've had colleagues that have died, much younger than they should have. And I look at that and I think, I don't want to be that. If I want to go do this, I'm going to go do it now. There might reach a point where, for health reasons or other reasons, we can't do this. Okay, well, I've got this done now. I can check this off and say, I lived that lifestyle. It's been great. Are we going to do this forever? I'm going to do it as long as I can, right? But we'll see what happens. So don't wait, because you just never know. I think that's my advice.
Because I think a lot of people they do wait. They go, I'm going to wait till I retire, or I will wait when I have more free time. But then you never know if that's going to happen, because anything can happen.
We know a number of people, both online, but also people we know personally, that waited for retirement, waited till they get the perfect rig, right? They want to, and then they get their rig, and not soon after that, one of them gets cancer. And even if they recover from that, it's still a problem. One of the spouses dies. And then the other one is, I've talked to a few people, they're like, well, we had these plans, we bought this rig, my husband passed away, I'm not sure what to do now. And generally a lot of us are like, you can still do it. Get out there and do it while you can. And and they will often say, I wish we had started sooner, so we could do it together. And I think that's key. And
and the reality is, not everybody can, and we know that. I mean, for whatever that reason is, maybe maybe your employer won't let you work remotely, or you are in a job. I mean, people in healthcare, like nurses, doctors, dentists, we kind of talked that, circling back to that. there are some like remote nursing jobs, like travel nurses, but as a general rule, anybody in like the service industry, anybody in construction, like there's a lot of jobs that you can't work remotely, and we understand that. But don't let it stop you entirely. Like, you could career pivot or just do it as soon as you can, do it when you can. And so we know that we are privileged in getting to do this now but we also took a lot of steps to get to this point. I mean, like I said, my original job wasn't going to let me do that. And while I really liked that job, I decided that it wasn't worth it to stay in it. I mean, I had to make a decision to change into a different career and go a different path. And so here we are 6 years later.
Well, and they told you, they're like, no, we can't let you go remote. And you said, well, I may need to find something different. And they said, well, you do what's best for you and your family. And then it took about a year, and you went and she gave her resignation, and they were like, wait, what? You're leaving? Like, you meant that?
You were kidding before, right?
Right. Yeah. And I think it was, I don't think they understood that it was possible. Like it was just not even consideration. And so then, it wasn't, then, and, whatever it was going on into 2020, then when everybody went remote, and I sort of was like, oh, look, it can be done, by the way.
Yeah. So
but
ironically,
they all ended up,
they're all now remote, right? Is that what you're trying to say?
Well, they did most of them. Yes. Yeah. Some of them have come back. I mean, they brought everybody back, but yes, I mean, for like 2 years they were remote.
Yeah. Like, so they could have done the job the way you wanted it.
Yeah,
could have.
Yep. But yeah,
there's always sacrifices. We talk about our first world problems, but there's within that, there's always sacrifices. There's always the what ifs. Start now. Start small. Start with whatever you have. Make it a month-long trip. Make it a week-long trip. Do something to get started, and start planning, because I mean, it doesn't just happen overnight. I mean, despite the fact that yes, we can apparently have an uncanny knack to walk into an RV dealer and just buy a rig sight unseen without even any discussion about it. Don't be us. Like, that's not really the recommended
but
way.
we knew
it
we
worked
were
for
doing
you though.
This. Yeah, we knew we were doing this. We just didn't know exactly what this was going to look like.
Yeah.
Right.
We sort of stumbled into what it looks like, but we were prepared for it, and we made sacrifices.
Posting was not on our radar originally. We thought we were just going to travel the country. I was going to work, he was going to freelance, and then it just found out that we couldn't really have two of us full-time working and traveling because it was too much. The logistics weren't getting done, the laundry wasn't getting done. Like, it was just a lot to try to plan and move and drive, and we were missing out on seeing things because we could either only travel on the weekends when we weren't working, or we could only travel at night, and then it was dark. And so somebody mentioned park hosting to us, and we said, oh, what's that? And started looking into it, and that turned out to be a great thing for us. So
I love it.
There's always something new to learn along the way.
I love it. Well, this has been great. Thank you so much. So if someone wants to get in touch with you guys, what's the best way?
We have a website, trekkers.org. So it's TREKERS, just one K in Trekkers. That's kind of our online hub where you can get to all of our other stuff. And we're on YouTube. We have a YouTube channel called Trekkers, where we share things about our lifestyle. We share great state parks we've been to, national parks, hikes we've done, that sort of thing. So that's probably the easiest way to find us.
Yeah. I mean, we're on all the socials, Insta, Facebook, whatever. But like the YouTube's probably our biggest, that's where we share the most stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, this has been great, Chris. Thanks.
Well, thank you so much. This has been great. And I'll put all the links in the show notes so people can go direct to your stuff. So thank you so much. And
thank you. Hope folks learn things.
Have some great travels. Talk to you soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Oh, I'm living that nomad life, city to city, feeling alive. From mountain tops to ocean drives, unchained, I thrive, I thrive. Oh, I thrive.